Hi, and welcome to Live at Sundance. We are broadcasting live from the YouTube house on Main Street in Park City, Utah. This is the fourth day of the broadcast. I'm Casey Neistat, and I was asked to host because I'm a big fan of Sundance. I had a movie here, I think it was 2010 called Daddy Longlegs, and I don't know, I'm a movie maker, so I dig Sundance, and I have a real affinity for YouTube. So the marriage of those two things got me an invite, a plane ticket, and this pretty sweet condo that I share with the makeup girl here in Park City. So I'll be here today, Monday through Wednesday, and then Jimmy Conrad from Kick TV Live is coming to the set on Thursday. He's a good guy. He's sort of a friend of mine. He's really good at soccer. While I'm here and throughout the week, we're going to be covering premieres, event coverage, excerpts from films and shorts, and a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff. Basically, all things Sundance. If there are any questions from the viewers at home, hashtag Sundance, hashtag live, and we'll do our best to answer them. To start today's broadcast, we're going to talk to Michael C. Hall and Nick D'Amici, both principal cast in the film Cold in July. Great movie, and premiering here at Sundance. Great, so we're gonna bring it over to you guys. I'm gonna come over there now. Okay, I'm gonna bring my note cards. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
I feel like, you see the monitor there? I feel like there's a lot of my ripped pants happening. So maybe we should kick off this interview just by addressing that. I thought this whole week would be from like the chest up, so
Right.
See, you guys have on appropriate clothing.
We can tear them if you'd like us to, so you feel better.
It would make me feel more comfortable.
I actually, you go ahead, but these are your pants.
Cold in July. So let's talk a little bit about the movie, and a little bit about sort of bringing it here to Sundance. What has the experience been like at Sundance for you with the movie?
It's been great, very positive. The response to the premiere was uniformly enthusiastic and positive, and I think the hopes are high as far as moving forward from here. And I don't know, you're kind of in a bubble with your movie here. It's hard to have a sense of what's going on more broadly than that, but it seems good.
Seems great so far. Screening was wonderful. A great reaction from the audience. So.
And was it the first time that you guys had seen the movie with an audience?
Yeah.
Because that to me always feels like sort of the biggest transition with a movie is that it's just, until it's been seen, it sort of ceases to exist. It ceases to be real. But once it's been seen, once it's been shared, it sort of substantiates sort of all the efforts and energies that went into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of forget that that's what movies are for, audiences.
Right, you get wrapped up in the process.
Exactly. It's not essentially for press people or for buyers. It's essentially made for an audience. And when you see an audience just sit there and enjoy it, you're like, all right, I did my job.
Let's talk a little bit about the movie. It takes place 1989.
Yeah.
That's right.
Your haircut in the movie was amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I really don't know what I would have done without that little mullet piece I wore on the back of my head.
It was a fantastically timely haircut.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way people were wearing their hair back then. So yeah, I felt like it would go a long way to kind of inform who the guy was and where we were in time and space to go with the mullet. And Jim and I actually joked that this is a movie about a guy who decided to grow a mustache a couple weeks ago. So I had
the best sum up in a movie.
Yeah.
No, I think that's
No spoilers.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I think that if people want to see a movie about a guy who just decided to grow a mustache, they will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
by
I
a lot
think
of the happenings in
this is
Cold
the
in
movie
July.
for them. Yeah.
It's a dark movie. It's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like going into it for you guys? What about a small movie like this got you both excited enough to agree to do it, to show up on set, to sort of bring what you brought to it emotionally. And
well, in Nick's case, I mean, he's been with it from the beginning. He co-wrote the script.
So.
And for me, it was the script that Nick and Jim came up with, the adaptation of the Joe Lansdale novel with the same name. I was so taken with it. I read it probably 2 years ago and kept badgering my agent, you know, like, what's going on with that movie? What's going on with that movie? I heard stories about financing falling through, or, you know, you guys were doing We Are What We Are, which premiered here last year for a while, but eventually everything came together. I actually saw Nick, who brought me over and introduced me in person to Jim.
1 year ago from the night we premiered.
Yeah.
We met Michael at a party, and me and Michael just started talking. We were just standing next to each other at a party, and then I realized, I knew he had read it, but I didn't know what had happened with it, you know.
Right.
We've been trying to do it for 6 years. And I just asked him, I said, you read a script called Cold in July? And he just went crazy on me, like, yeah, I like it. I said, well, you want to meet the director? He's just standing over there. And I walked him over to Jim, and that was it. Michael just beat him up, picked him up in a bear hug, and told him, I'll see you on set.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell there's a real camaraderie.
Oh yeah, we had a blast. I mean, it's a dark movie, but we laughed a lot. You know, it was, you know, a really crazy chemistry between Don Johnson and Sam Shepard and my character. 3 sort of very different people living in the same world, and that was a lot of fun to, you know, figure out how to do.
Did you have much experience with gunplay?
No, but then neither did Richard Dane. So, I felt comfortable.
Because your character plays sort of at least when it comes to anything violent, plays the novice.
Yeah. He's a regular Joe, around whom and to whom crazy things are happening. You know, his life from the get-go starts sort of spiraling into relative chaos. And I got to, if I felt like I didn't know what was going on, that was right where I needed to be. Right, it worked. Physically demanding role. Yeah, definitely some of those sequences later in the film were pretty intense, and you know, we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of time. We did have a great deal of asbestos and sawdust on certain floors. So yeah, it was pretty down and dirty, but everybody was on board, you know. So big picture, hopes, expectations, leaving Sundance with.
We're hoping somebody really likes it enough to take it somewhere else, put it on another level. We'll see.
Fantastic, guys. Anything else? Anything else in the movie that? I
don't know. It's a difficult movie to talk about because it's you know, it's really built on the element of surprise and defying expectations that it creates. So you know, it's hard not to spoil anything, talk too specifically about. I mean,
Kurt Russell was there. Wyatt Russell, his son, is in the movie, and Kurt Russell was there. He loved it. You know, he sat behind me in the theater. He was sitting behind me, just laughing and hooting through the whole thing. And I talked to him later, and his sum up was really good. He said it's really like a coming of age story, like a middle-aged guy coming of age.
Right.
You know,
that's a fair
used to a young kid coming of age, but this is a guy who's never tested his mettle.
Right.
And so I think he hit it on the head there. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a tough movie to compartmentalize. It's a tough movie to put into a few sentences, but I feel like that nails it. And I think that's the role that the postman brings up in the movie, is sort of that challenge of coming of age to a middle-aged framer.
Yeah.
Get the picture framer?
Yeah.
Great, guys. Thanks for coming by.
Sure.
Good luck the rest of your time out here at Sundance.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming out, and congrats on the movie.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you, sir.
Earlier this week, our team headed to the Directors Brunch, which is a private brunch hosted by Robert Redford that gives all the directors here at the festival a chance to sort of talk, collectively gather, and get to know one another. So let's take a look at that video.
Every year we bring the directors over to the Sundance Resort for a director's brunch. And that's where it's just directors and they all get to meet each other, they commune with each other, and that's where Redford addresses them as all artists. So it's like a nice place to be where they get out of the fray and have a really wonderful time together.
Sundance still has cornered the market, I think, in terms of perception and reality. The perception of it being the launch pad for a lot of careers and a lot of significant films.
Jeff Price, here with a film called Lowdown.
Anna Lily Amapur.
My name is Malik Vital.
Sydney Freeland, I'm the writer-director of Drunktown's Finest.
Our movie is called What We Do in the Shadows, and the section it's in is...
Midnight.
Was it?
Yeah.
Once.
I'm here with my feature film, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
And I sort of just had the realization today that it's not done until it gets received.
It's very surreal to have your film selected for Sundance, you know, and it's really awesome.
Independent cinema.
Sundance.
A voice.
The culminating thing is here. Like, bing, you know, this is the thing we've been working towards. We're here.
It's like crack for artists, you know.
So, I know some other filmmakers and they're eating that nice salmon that they got, and I want it now.
Salmon will be gone by now.
This is a big deal for me. This is really the only chance that I get during the whole festival to spend time with you. Having you all gather here where I can feel the comfort of being in the same room with the people that are the most important to me, which are the filmmakers. Why here? I did want to bring you here so you could like hear or maybe feel that this is where it all began. What you bring to the table is your voice, your vision, your point of view about the world you're living in. Tell stories about the truth as you see it. There's just the determination, the perseverance. Don't give up. So for God's sake, keep it up. Thank you.
I haven't met them yet. I've communicated, but seeing them face to face, it's just warm, and I like to connect them. I like to connect, you know, this filmmaker from Ethiopia with this American filmmaker, and it creates like a really warm thing.
It's the ultimate stamp of approval, I guess. The film is good.
Yeah, good.
Independent cinema.
Independent movies.
Welcome back. I'm going to toss it over to director Roger Ross Williams as he talks to Zeresenay Mahari, writer and director of Difret. And they're joined by actress Maron Getnet. Guys?
Hi, here with Zeresenay and Mahari. So, this film is so powerful and so important. Tell me how you sort of came to the whole thing.
I met Amaz Ashanafi's brother at a friend's dinner about in 2005, and he told me about his sister and the work that she does in her organization. So I was blown away by what her organization had to offer, and it was first of its kind. I asked if I could meet her, and we met a couple of months later, and she told me more about the organization and the cases that they worked on. And right away, I knew I wanted to tell her story.
Tell us a little about the story.
Difret is a feature film based on a true story of a lawyer who comes to the help of a young girl who was abducted for marriage, and who ended up killing the person who abducted her, and stood trial for murder for 2 years.
So this is a beautifully shot film and a pretty big production. So how do you shoot a film like that in Ethiopia? I mean, having made films in Africa, I know the challenges. What was that like?
Well, it was very difficult, really. A lot of planning went into it. We did 5 months of pre-production. So we had a team prepared in Los Angeles, we had a team prepared in New York, and then I went over to Addis Ababa, and we started preparing basically the cast, the crew, and I think the most difficult part was to get a 2,000 pound of camera gear that Panavision gave us to Ethiopia. So we had to put it on a plane and bring it there and go through customs and all of that stuff. That took a little while, and ensuring it also was a big problem. But after that, once we got to starting shooting the film, the other big problem we had is working with Niro and her popularity in Ethiopia. The first day we went out to shoot on the street, there was about 500 people who came out to see her. So, yeah.
Wow.
Other than that, it was piece of cake.
Darren, you never see strong black African women as the solution to the problems. It's usually, a white aid worker coming in to save Africa. What was it like playing a strong black African woman?
That makes me so lucky. I feel that way because, as you said, Mata Shanafi is the powerful woman. She did a lot of things to change the woman's life, especially on the legal issues. So just being her or just feeling like her is really amazing, and it gives me confidence. So it was really. I feel like I am the luckiest girl that I am feeling that way. So, and then the challenging things was there is I have to show everything through me, her confidence, her things, her power, and everything. So it was a little bit challenging, even thinking being her, not just to be. So that was a great opportunity for me.
Yeah. So when are you gonna premiere it in Ethiopia, and what is it gonna be like to show this film there?
Well, I mean, I can't wait actually to premiere it in Ethiopia. We don't know when we're gonna go there. We're also at the Berlin Film Festival, so we're heading there in February, and my guess is gonna be sometime in spring, in late April or maybe May.
How are they gonna receive the film? What's it gonna be like? I mean, this is a serious issue. Right. It's a complicated issue. It's probably going to be very controversial there. What's it going to be like?
Well, this is a true story that happened, and the people actually have participated, and they voiced their opinions when the case was on television and on the radio, on the papers every day. So I don't think we're going to have any trouble sort of bringing this story alive again. If it's not even a concern for me, but if it would be a concern, the only thing that I might think that would be, a little bit of a challenge for us is to be able to have the audience to get into a different style of filmmaking. The way films are made in Ethiopia, the way the TV shows and the radio shows are structured a little bit different. So, and we want this to reach as many, eyeballs as possible. So, connecting and introducing this film language might be a little bit of a task, but I have a good feeling about it.
Yeah, plus even the production quality is a very new experience for Ethiopian movie industry. So because of that, I hope everybody will like the movie.
Yeah, I mean, they're used to seeing Nollywood sort of, really low production values, sort of, the Nollywood movies, and this is really different for them.
It is.
So it's going to be.
So everybody gonna be eager to see.
Yeah,
good.
I hope so.
See, she knows more than I do.
I know.
The audience
I know. I had a lot of movies to play locally, but this is a new experience. Working with an international crew by itself is a new experience, and everybody wanna see this movie because of even the production quality.
Yeah. So you premiered. What was it like? What's it been like?
It's great.
It's great. What was the premiere like?
No, well, we premiered Saturday night, and I mean, I couldn't have been a bit better. Yeah, you had everybody stayed for Q&A afterwards. They received the film very well and very happy, and we sold out all of our shows. So,
what did people want to know about the film? What was the Q&A like?
I think the common thread in the questions I've got is the same thing you touched on, like how difficult was it to shoot a film in Ethiopia, and especially to shoot a film on 35mm film. And was the government, okay with, doing that? And I think it was a great question, and in terms of showing African talent and production, this quality to come from Africa, it was very important for us. So.
And Zeresenay, the crew, was it a local crew?
Yes, majority of the crew, about 90% of the crew is a local crew. We brought in about 10 people that are heads of department to help us out.
Wow. So, so you how big was the crew?
Man,
Because that's really I mean, you know, you're.
I think we had something like 61 or 65 people behind the camera. We had 71 speaking roles, 300 extras, and out of that, 10 of the crew members were from around the world: Poland, South Africa, Kenya, Scotland, New York, LA, everywhere. Yeah.
Did you make this film for an Ethiopian audience or for an international audience? What do you think?
I think primarily I made this film for an Ethiopian audience, and I'm hoping that this would be one of the films that will cross over, and from what we've seen so far, I mean, it's very encouraging.
Yeah. Because you know, you just don't see African films that tackle something so complex, and that's what's really amazing about it.
Thank you.
So yeah, it'd be amazing if you cross over, and we you know, as Americans, we just don't see images like that coming out of that.
It was very important for us to be able to tell our story in a way that people everywhere in the world can relate to. So we've tried, I think, to. We're making this film with one eye, you know, kind of looking to the west and seeing that we might want to be, we might end up there at one point.
What do you hope to get out of Sundance?
I hope Sundance would give us a chance to be in front of people to talk about this issue. I hope people would see the hard work and the, you know, see it as an art form and understand that, you know, there's a lot of similarities with the things that we do. And this issue of abduction for marriage, when I started it, I thought it was an Ethiopian issue. But by the time that we finished production, we found out that it's actually a worldwide issue. Yeah. So I hope this comes out from the film and with the Q&As that we have.
Well, thank you guys. This is a really important and powerful film, and thank you for being here.
Awesome, thank you.
Great.
Yesterday, Sundance put together a panel to discuss the power of the story. They explored filmmaking as a tool of social change as well as the topic of honesty and narrative. Here's a clip from that panel.
So what's the big deal with storytelling, and why do we need to understand impact? Do you see yourselves as activists? Do you see yourself as social change agents?
An activist, it sounds like it has this sort of overturns of being like left wing.
And what's wrong with being left wing?
Well, I try to make films that appeal to both sides, though, whenever I can.
My mentor, when I was coming through Channel 4, the broadcaster, once said to me, the mark of a true documentary is it's asking a moral question. And I think that's what it is to have a healthy society, which is that we should be in a constant debate about what is the good life, how should we live, how should we treat each other.
You know, my first story I did on garbage back before there was recycling programs in America. I called it Urban Ore. Back then, there's only 2 recycling programs in America, one in Poughkeepsie, one in Mountain View, California. You know, those people saw that, it became part of a movement, and now there's recycling under every probably desk in America now. So I see it, filmmaking, photography as a great force of social change. You know, I call it a weapon of mass construction. You know, you drop a bomb, you kill people. You make a film, you know, it goes on, it permeates throughout the world, and it keeps on doing good work.
And that's really where filmmakers and storytellers and documentary filmmakers have been making this exceptional contribution in the last 5 to 10 years, and it's an exciting moment.
So about a dozen years ago, we started asking these very small questions, you know, humans haven't thought much about, like the nature of good and evil. So why would anyone ever be good to a stranger? That's the kind of core question we started answering by looking at brain chemistry. And as part of this, we kind of happened across stories as a way to change people's attitudes and behaviors. And what we found is that this story is a reliable stimulant for the brain to make oxytocin, which is a chemical I discovered about 10 years ago makes us trust others, makes us feel empathy. And the more oxytocin you release when you watch the story, the more money, when you give you an option to donate to childhood charity, the more money you donate. Every story we tell manipulates our physiology, and we can do that for good or evil.
Okay.
That shut down the conversation. Perfect.
But I could imagine politicians hiring people like you and saying, help me construct a narrative that can allow me to manipulate the voters.
Well, having said that, you know, we, as social creatures, we're really good at picking up the liars, the cheats, maybe not in the first viewing, but, you know, pretty soon. So Louis and I talked about this, Dave too, about this need for honesty and in narrative. It's got to be a true narrative. You've got to feel this narrative. And if I'm giving you a line of bull, you're going to pick it up pretty fast.
One of the things that I talk to my staff about at StoryCorps is that it's not about you. You know, it's kind of that hospice thing, like we're here in service to other people. We have to understand stuff like oxytocin and evaluation, but don't do stuff that's going to just for the purpose of generating oxytocin or just for the purpose of pulling certain levers. Do stuff you care about, tell stories passionately. Don't be an asshole and tell the truth.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
What's up, guys? We're back with my homie Tom Sachs. Tom was a sort of surprise guest when I found out that he was out here at Sundance. I was like, you've got to come on live at Sundance and talk to us about what you're doing out here. Tom, before I ask, what's the thing around your neck?
I just like to walk in the rain, so it's my hood. Except when you wear glasses, the rain goes on your hood. So it's a J. Crew cardigan.
With
a 10 bullets.
Okay. Got it.
Patch.
Okay, and is that helpful even though it's Park City, there's not a whole lot of rain?
Yeah, it's helpful.
Because I don't
wear hats.
You look great.
Thanks. Thank you.
What are you doing here?
I mean, I know.
What are you doing here at Sundance, Tom?
I'm teaching, leading a workshop on free fail, which is, we'll be teaching you how to draw today at 1:30. And the idea is you will fail, but through your failure you will learn.
Well, I think that's a nice segue to how Tom and I know one another, which is Tom was one of the first people I met when I moved to New York City 13 years ago, and not long after meeting Tom, we did a film series together. And I think that film series really embodied the idea of failing and finding success through that.
Right, so you're talking about Nutsies.
That's right.
So, and this is a film series that we collaborated on with your brother Van.
Yep, 2001 I want to say is when it started.
And it was about a dozen movies. It's pretty complicated to explain in a couple minutes, but it represented the aspects of the sculptures that we made together that existed in time.
Back to failure.
But the important thing about then or now is that only through failure do we learn. And if you imagine the guys who were inventing the light bulb, and before they discovered tungsten, used bamboo and every last little bit of material possible until they stumbled upon tungsten. It wasn't like there were idiots failing on 1,000 different materials when there are 1 million out there. It's through refinement and failing that we learn, and you learn about the world when you make other mistakes.
So what's the relationship between those ideas and drawing? What do you plan on talking about today at your session?
Well, it's called free fail safe.
I'm not so sure it's on my note card.
I think it's called fail safe. Anyway, but it's not about failure, it's about fear, and we all know this. And that's the thing that's the elephant in the room that none of us are talking about. And Casey, in your life, you've had a tremendous amount of fear that you've ignored in order to find your calling and find success. And fear is this thing that happens all the time, and the only way that we can get through it is by feeling it and doing it anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that was what interested me in having you on today and having this opportunity to talk a little bit about failure and to talk about fear, because I think filmmaking, the process of filmmaking, much like the process of sculpting or drawing, is about doing something that's never been done before. And if it hasn't been done before, there's no prescription for it, which means that there's a huge opportunity for failure. If without a defined path, there's a gigantic opportunity for failure. And there's a great deal of fear that you have to be willing to overcome to put yourself in a position of vulnerability, in a position to fail. And I think a lot of those ideas are embodied here at Sundance. Sundance is almost a celebration of one's willingness to overcome fear.
Well, in a sense, in order to succeed, you must fail, because if you go for what you know will work always, you're just repeating yourself. Someone once said, an artist's best work lies just beyond his ability to understand it.
Right, it's like, this is either...
So if you know what you're doing, it's just
you're not
pandering.
Pushing it, right.
You're not pushing, yeah.
It's like that
Or
awesome,
you're practicing, to be fair.
Right, it's like that awesome quote that's either like on a poster with a kitten hanging from a tree, or somebody like really important, like Winston Churchill said it, which is you never fail till you give up. And that idea, I think, embodied, like, that is what filmmaking is. That is what the process of filmmaking is. And more pointedly, I think that's the process of independent filmmaking, is that it's, you can fail and fail and fail again until you find success. But most filmmakers that have found success will tell you it's their perseverance through failure, and they're embracing that fear of failing that led them to an ultimate success.
Sure. Well, with digital filmmaking, the bar of entry is much lower. So it's easier to get in, maybe harder to stay. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Depending on who you are, not if you're Casey.
Thank you, Tom.
I was just reading our favorite book, Endurance, today.
Great book.
Which is about Ernest Shackleton's imperial transcontinental voyage across Antarctica that failed, except in a sense, no one died, so it was a success. I think it's called the world's most successful failure, because they were lost for 2 years, and they came back, and everyone lived. But it was through perseverance, and they never gave up. But in a sense, when it comes to art, I have a formula that we'll be teaching later today, and if I can lay it out briefly, it's...
Lay it out briefly.
It's... don't censor yourself. Draw or sculpt or film what you want. Censor intensely what you show anyone else. I was teaching this to my 10-year-old nephew, Max Ellenbogen, and he said, "You mean when you draw naked pictures of other women, don't show them to your wife?" I said, "Exactly, Max." So don't let the world censor you, but be very critical on what you let out.
Right, and I think that's no more true than in filmmaking. I think the filmmaking or the art of the edit is not what you leave in, but what you're willing to leave on the floor. Yeah. Kill your babies is a term that gets thrown around a lot, especially in filmmaking. Keep it short, keep it good.
And that takes great courage, because some of your babies or the things that brought you into it, you have to let go of in order to respect your viewer and show and tell the story.
Yes, indeed. Have you, shifting course here, have you been to Sundance before?
I've not, no.
How long have you been out here?
2 days.
Have you seen any movies?
Yeah, I saw The Young Ones, which directed by Jake Paltrow, which you have to see because it's a great movie. It's as good as A Boy and His Dog and Road Warrior and Mad Max. It's one of the greatest dystopic films. It's it's shot in Dagobah. Tatooine, and they've got a dually over-under bolt action rifle with a shotgun and and the star of it is Big Dog, the MIT robot.
Yeah, of course.
It's the star. So that's great. And Drunk, the finest of Drunk Town, which is beautiful.
And how long are you out here for?
I'm leaving tonight or tomorrow. Went skiing, yesterday. Well, we'll see. We'll talk. But I went skiing yesterday with Dr. Kevin Hand from JPL, who's one of the judges for the Science Festival, and my collaborators during space program Mars.
And how do you find, for me, what I love about Sundance is sort of the energy, the people here. It's such a celebration of creation, and I think that it's something that you experience here, but from the outside, it's kind of hard to, it's hard to penetrate or hard to understand. How's that experience been like? How's your time here been like?
Well, the time here has been great. This is a very positive environment. As you know, in the movie 10 Bullets that I made with your brother.
This is a great Tom Sachs movie that's available on Tom's website. Cut me off if I'm doing this wrong. TomSachs.com. 10bullets.com.
It's also on YouTube.
It's also on YouTube. Okay, sorry, go.
Here's a sticker for you.
Thanks, Tom.
The rule number one is creativity is the enemy. Do what is set out before you, which seems contrary to what the environment that we're here. We're surrounded by all creative people. In fact, I was at my hotel and I noticed Kevin Hand from JPL. He was the only one in my hotel with skis. Everyone else looked like they were in Williamsburg with like knit hat and expensive glasses, and he was clomping through. And he's a astrobiologist who's a leader in his field, and he's the only one with skis. Everyone else is making networking and making things happen and enjoying that. But I guess the idea when I say creativity is the enemy is indulge your creativity, but edit it and censor it, and only let out a very narrow band of incremental innovation. Because if you innovate for innovation's sake, it becomes caprice. It's like an addiction. It has no meaning.
Well, thank you. And I think what's interesting, Tom, and why I love seeing you out here is you're a sculptor, you're a painter, you're an artist in the traditional sense, but I think so much of what you do has so many parallels with the independent film community. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming out here.
Maybe we'll go
skiing later today.
We'll talk about him.
Okay, next up, Robert De Niro's father, Robert De Niro Sr., and side by side, these are the two most good-looking men ever created by God himself. Robert De Niro Sr. was a talented artist in his own right, and De Niro wanted to celebrate his dad's life and passion for art by creating a documentary. It started out as an internal kind of family passion project and became the short Remembering the Artist Robert De Niro Sr. Here's a short video about it.
It was not intended to be a documentary for television. It was a documentary for the family, for my kids to know that who their grandfather was, a documentation of that.
One of the important things about this film is, Robert De Niro Sr.'s art at the end of his career, in the middle of his career really, wasn't seen in the way that it should have been, because the art world was focused in a very different place. One of the things that Gita and I really have been committed to, and is, Robert De Niro, is making sure that the art is seen.
It's paying tribute to my father, keeping his legacy alive, keeping his memory alive, his work preserved, because he was an artist and a prolific one, and I just have to keep that going, period.
We also hope that it will really allow people, because to see one of the challenges of working in a film about a visual artist, an incredible painter, is how to really do justice to the work on screen. And we had an amazing DP, Rudy Valdez, who was able to, and we have amazing technology which allows us to film and and depict the artwork as well as we can, but there's still nothing quite like seeing it as it's supposed to be seen, on a wall, in a gallery, proper lighting, and where you as the viewer in person can take your time.
So we do have a show here, and it's at the Julie Nestor Gallery here in Sundance, and so go see it.
Everybody go see it. Go see it.
Next, I'm being joined by director Peter Sattler and actor Lane Garrison. They made the movie Camp X-Ray, a movie that's being talked about a lot here at Sundance. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
having
us. Saw the movie. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I gotta say, Lane, you seem like a nice guy, but you're such a dick in the movie.
I know.
It's
it's crazy because I'm literally being accosted on the street here, which is awesome because the movie's having a lot of effects on a lot of people, but I have to convince them, this is not who I am in real life, at all. And I am a nice guy, so.
It's the burden of being a good actor.
But it's great playing a character. Pete wrote such a great three-dimensional character that it was just great to step into those shoes.
Yeah, well, it's always an interesting challenge to try to make an antagonist that is antagonistic without being a complete parody of a villain, It's always a challenge.
Yeah, I think he was, this man's sort of been desensitized. He's been there, Pete always said he was the salty vet at Gitmo, so
I always looked at Lane's character, who plays this this corporal that's older than Kristen's character. I always looked at him as like Kristen's character's future. Like if she had stayed and gone down this kind of path down in Gitmo of just totally being desensitized and losing this kind of sense of humanity, it's like that's where you would kind of end up.
This hardened shell of a
it's like a view of what your future could be if you kind of took the wrong path down there.
I want to back up a second, give a brief sort of synopsis, overview of what this movie is. I can do it. You could jump in. Maybe I can do it as a viewers.
Let's do it together.
Okay, let's do it together, word for word.
Yes.
The movie's about a young soldier at Gitmo. Her experiences, played by Kristen Stewart, a girl, her experiences down there, and ultimately a relationship that she builds with one of the prisoners, one of the detainees.
Yeah, that's very much exactly what it is. I mean, from the beginning, I wanted to start with the kind of bizarre idea of like trying to do a story about Guantanamo Bay that had nothing to do with politics, and just was really just make the movie about a kind of naturalistic just experience of what it would be like to be a soldier down there. And so that's kind of where the jumping off point was for the story. So it's very much a story about this girl that goes down there, wants to be in the military, goes down there, sees things are very bizarre, and then just has to deal with this antagonism coming initially from the detainees, who are very aggressive to the guards for obvious reasons. And then also, of course, we layer in some of the antagonism coming from Lane's character and some of this, the inherent problems that come about with being a woman in the military. We kind of touch into those subjects as well.
And to talk about that a little bit. So the main soldier, the main focus is played by Kristen Stewart, as a girl, and not just a girl, but a small in size, small in stature, young, an attractive girl. What were some of the decisions behind that?
Well,
some of the ambitions with that.
I mean, I think part of the real part in terms of casting Kristen in the role and why we really wanted Kristen to do it is it's really about just this kind of toughness, not so much a physical toughness, but this real like kind of just a spirit of ferocity and toughness and a real kind of tough outer shell, which Kristen I think naturally really has. But what is great about her, I think she has she's very good at conveying that soft, chewy center as well, where you can feel this vulnerability underneath it. Because I feel like those two things always go hand in hand with people. Like the people that are most have the hardest defenses are there because they're the most vulnerable inside. So that's where we really kind of came from. And in the research that I had done about actual kind of female soldiers that are down there, I mean, it's like they're not Rambos. It's just like they're girls from all across America that are 18 or 19 years old that just wanted to join the military.
I think it was really interesting on one of our screenings. Afterwards, there was a woman who worked at Abu Ghraib.
Abu Ghraib, yeah.
Yeah, and she said, that Kristen and Peter and everybody had captured that world and exactly what it was like for a female working in the military. And I think with Kristen, she does have that natural outer shell toughness, but there is that vulnerability, and this to me is the best performance she's ever turned in, and I told her that. I mean, she's incredible in this movie.
Yeah, and I think that those vulnerabilities are really highlighted just by the fact that she's playing opposite you in the movie, and that juxtaposition of what is a small girl and with a nickname Blondie, who's cute, and she's wearing the same outfit, she's wearing the same uniform, and she's given, for the most part, the same responsibilities as a hardened soldier who's been down there.
You know what else it is? It's like that, like Napoleon complex, where it's like she has more to prove, you know what I mean? And so we tried to set that up in the beginning very much, where it's like, at the beginning, she volunteers for this thing at the beginning, and the idea that because I am a girl, she has this kind of drive to prove even farther that she is even tougher than the boys are, you know what I mean? That's something we kind of, I think, wanted to weave in there as well, which is just the idea. It's always the glass ceiling thing where women need to, in many fields, do twice as much work to get the same recognition that, the other half does. Because there's always that thinking oh, that's just a girl, oh, you can't do that job. And so we wanted to start a character that kind of very fiercely was trying to aggressively prove that she was that. And so kind of the smaller and prettier she was, it was a great juxtaposition. And we do some of that in the movie where we show a few scenes of her in this very feminine side, and then the rest of the movie she's just totally buttoned down and this baggy, unattractive. We try to make Kristen as ugly as possible with this ugly hair, and so it was very interesting balance trying to play with that idea of what does it mean to be a woman when you're also trying to like get respect from people. You know, it's a weird double-edged sword. I think women face a lot, whether it's in a corporate world or any other world, of like, how can you be a woman and be feminine, have sexuality and all those things, but still be taken seriously as like a shark, you know?
Sure. We're getting a lot of questions on Twitter, so I want to look at some of those. But first, I had a question, which is, you know, my younger brother was in the military for 10 years, and I spent time actually filming in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
But Gitmo in particular is one of the most secretive, one of the most locked off, one of the most, if you look at the access they've given to press and any sort of publicity. Yeah. But Pete, you painted such a vivid portrayal of what it's like down there. Just tell me a little bit about the research. How did you figure all that out without ending up in jail for being a being a suspect?
I assure you, the NSA has a very elaborate file.
I can only imagine.
Because at the beginning, it's like, you know, when I started this movie, it was going to be a very small DIY thing. You know, I just had this idea to do this really weird little avant-garde movie that happened to take place at Gitmo that I had this kind of really cool idea that I wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, well, me and my friends, we'll just go do this thing, real small, low budget, nothing. And then we got Kristen on, and so it became a much bigger thing. But the point I'm saying is, I was writing all this, when I wrote the movie and did the majority of the research that affected the script, it was just me, you know? It was me and my executive producer and wife, Emmy Ellison. We just were doing research all day long, reading memoirs and watching documentaries. And it's interesting, as secretive as Gitmo is, there's actually a fair amount of you know, it is such an interesting place. There's a lot of documentation. There's a lot of footage. There are a lot of memoirs. And I think the Army, to some degree, tries to let reporters in. Now, they only show you a narrow focus of what you want to see in there, but you can start to kind of read between the lines and translate. This is what the Army's telling me. I'm guessing it's probably just a little left of that instead. But yeah, it took a lot of that. Actually, WikiLeaks was another huge benefactor in that, because they leaked the standard operating procedure of Camp Delta, and so it gave all this minute detail about the procedures, which is kind of I wanted to focus on the very mechanical, microscopic details.
And we had a great production designer, and you know, we shot inside a real prison out in Whittier, California. So that added to the element, because basically Guantanamo Bay is built like the prisons in the States.
Yeah, but it's a double whammy of trying to get like the technical details right of all the Army and other things. But I was really worried about is trying to get the soul and the spiritual aspect of like the tone and tenor of what life is for a guard down there. That was, to me, the much harder thing to do. Anyone can look at.
I think you also nailed it with what it might be like to be a detainee down there.
I hope so. I mean, you can only guess. I mean, there's some great memoirs of people who got released and wrote some memoirs that were very informative, I think, just to the general vibe of what it would be like to be in there.
So I have about 80 questions from Twitter here, but I think we have time to tackle one or two of them. This one's for you, Lane. What was your reaction after seeing the film for the first time?
Well, it's interesting because I saw it obviously on Friday when it premiered.
That was your first time seeing it completed?
We only just finished it a couple weeks ago.
And so there was a lot of nerves going into this thing. And, you know, we're all probably our own worst critics and harsh on ourselves. So in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, this thing's going to probably be like a solid 6. You know, and by the end of it, everyone's in tears, myself included, in a standing ovation, which is amazing. It's almost like these are peers, these are people that care about films that are here, and I was blown away by the film. And you know, I set this on stage that day. Part of the process in making this movie changed the way I thought about Guantanamo Bay. And you know, before it was like, these guys are guilty of 9/11. They all deserve to rot down there. And after doing this movie, it made me change my thinking. And I thought, maybe there's one guy down there, or 2 or 3, that aren't guilty. They got picked up on a battlefield or in the wrong circumstance, and they deserve their day in court. And I really started thinking about those men down there. There's still 170 detainees down there, and most can't go anywhere because no country will take them.
Sure, and as apolitical as the movie is, which I think it is very much so, that to me was a fact that was impossible to ignore. That's an aspect of the story that, no matter who you are watching it, it's impossible to have those considerations, not have those considerations, rather. Guys, we're out of time.
Yeah.
Great to have you by. Congrats again on the movie.
Awesome.
I'm sure it's going to be in every theater in the country soon enough.
Your lips to God's ears.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Next, our cameras were at the premiere of Frank, a comedy about a young wannabe musician who discovers he's bitten off more than he can chew when he joins a band of eccentric pop musicians led by mysterious Frank, who wears a gigantic fake head. Let's go to the video.
We track a lot of films here at Sundance, and which means we know that they're being made, or we know that they're in a script form. I don't think we've tracked ever a film longer than this one, and we're never more excited when we actually saw it than this one.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. This is an incredible auditorium, and I can't. A year ago we were shooting the film, and we started shooting in New Mexico, and then we went back and shot in Ireland. And if anybody had asked me then what would be my fantasy place to launch the film, it would probably be this cinema, and certainly in this festival.
I used to be in a band in the 1980s called the Frank Side Bottom O Blimey Big Band. And Frank wore a big fake head that he never took off, although actually he did take his head off sometimes. But my favorite times were when we were like speeding down the motorway at 2 a.m. And he was wearing the big fake head.
I did not understand it at all when I first read it. And at first I said no. A couple weeks later, I called Lenny back and said, actually, please, can I do it?
Michael is shooting Macbeth in the wilds of Scotland, and Donald is shooting a movie in Australia. So neither could come. Both are really upset they can't be here. But I thought one thing that we could do would be if everybody was to put their masks on, I can send them a picture of the audience.
Welcome back. So for the last couple of minutes of the show here, the kind folks at Sundance and YouTube gave me a little bit of window to talk about my own creative process. One that I describe as handmade, homemade filmmaking. I actually uploaded a movie this morning about my favorite video camera and how I customize it. And if you click right here, just kidding, we can't do that, can we? This is live.
We'll set it up so
we'll set it up so you can see the video. But I just uploaded a movie about my favorite video camera and how I customize it. This is what the favorite video camera looks like. In any event, I get a lot of questions about my filmmaking style and methods and things like that. So I thought we'd use a couple minutes here to field some of those questions. Okay, to Twitter. Okay, this is from Jose Fontano. Thank you for the question, Jose. What are some of the more unusual things you've encountered when filming abroad? I think that we spoke earlier with a couple people that shot a feature film in Ethiopia, and I can only imagine what it's like to work with a 100-plus person crew in Ethiopia. Because my trick to filming abroad, or filming anywhere where you don't know what the limitations are or what the limitations you might encounter would be, are to maintain as low of a profile as humanly possible. So whether shooting in Afghanistan or shooting in sub-Saharan Africa or Uganda earlier this year, if you keep a low profile and keep it down and be respectful, you can get away with almost anything. Ironically, the one time that I was arrested and got the crap beat out of me by a bunch of gendarme police officers was in France for filming inside of what was then a Virgin Megastore. So as far as what my unusual things I've encountered was just getting beat up by these cops for filming where I wasn't supposed to film, and them not believing that I didn't speak French. And I actually quickly took the memory card out of my camera and stuck it into my underpants as they're walking me with the two cops into the back room where they accosted me. That was pretty unusual. But a good rule of thumb when in an environment that you don't know, just low profile, or when you're dealing with any cop or bureaucracy, just be as low-key and nice without being obsequious as possible. Okay, next question. I answered that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. With gear being so accessible, what's the best way to go about getting your films out there? This is a question I get a lot. I ask a lot, and it always starts with a technical question. Like, I think the most insulting question you can ever have for a filmmaker is, what did you shoot that on? Because I think, like, the gear is not interesting. Anyone can access any gear if they have the money for it. The hard part is telling a great story or making a movie that people want to see. So yes, the entry point for filmmaking now is lower than it's ever been. On any cell phone, you can shoot and edit and distribute a movie to a worldwide audience. But what hasn't changed is what people want to see. And I think what people want to see, I think what people care about it is great storytelling. So yes, the entry point's less, and yes, anyone out there can make a movie. How you get it seen, I have no idea. I think the way you get it seen is to make really great work. When people ask me, or when I get hired to make a movie and they say, will you make us a viral movie? I always say, like, I have no idea how to make a viral movie. I'll make the best movie I can, and maybe a lot of people will see it. But for me, it always starts with making something good. So if that's where your priority lies, then ultimately you will find an audience. Unless only you think your work is good and everybody else thinks it sucks. And then you will have a very lonely audience. Okay, other questions from Twitter. Will there be more? That question's no. What's your favorite part of the filmmaking process? My least favorite part of the filmmaking process is editing. Most of my own movies I edit, and I always write in the edit. And what that means is, like, I'll have an idea for a movie, I will go shoot that idea as best I can, but the actual writing, the actual pulling it together happens in the edit. And I think this is very similar to how most documentary films, even feature documentary films, are made. But that part of the process is incredibly challenging, because whether it's a feature-length doc or a 3-minute movie about your favorite video camera, you always have to leave out so much. And as the creator, as the director, as the writer, you put so much energy and effort into capturing all of these elements. How do you decide what gets cut, what stays in, what direction you want to take the story in? So my favorite part is out there doing it. My least favorite part, which isn't fair, the hardest part, the most challenging part is definitely the edit. And I always think that's sort of what separates the men from the boys, is when you can cross that bridge, when you can edit it. When someone says to you, I shot this great movie, I just have to edit it, my response is always like, good luck with that, because that's the equivalent of going to a grocery store and buying a bunch of really great food and saying, I cooked a great dinner, I just have to make it. It doesn't really add up. Okay, last question from the Twitter sphere. What projects are you working on right now? Well, I'm working on a handful of projects. I actually have a very exciting announcement to make. This is a live at Sundance exclusive that I'm about to unleash right now. I have not announced this yet, but I am, starting March 1, going to be moving to Boston for 3 months. And I'm going to be doing a fellowship at MIT that was a joint project between the Sundance Foundation and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And I will be a resident filmmaker at MIT, working in, with, and out of their media lab. And I'm not sure what we're going to be doing. I don't know what the specifics of it are. I know my specific ambition there is only to do work that's unlike anything I've ever done before. But it is something that's very exciting and something that I'm very much so looking forward to. Guys, thanks for showing up in front of your computer and watching this live feed on YouTube. I want to thank all of my great guests today, and congrats to them on all their hard work in movies. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Weber Shandwick, Canon, HP, and Adobe Creative Cloud for making our live broadcast at Sundance possible. I will be back. You all will be back, and hopefully you viewers will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Tomorrow we're going to be talking more about failure's place in the creative process. If you guys want to participate or engage, it's #Sundance, #live. We're going to leave you today with a video on The Source, which is an artistic endeavor created by Doug Aitken that explores where a creative idea starts and its journey to completion.
There's a physical incarnation to The Source that's here this year. Hopefully a lot of you have already seen it, and hopefully everybody will get a chance to see it. Maybe it'd be a good starting point to talk a little bit about the process behind that, maybe describing even kind of what it is and how it can be.
Yeah, and maybe to kind of bring this project back to the beginning for me, I found myself oftentimes it's New Year's. New Year's arriving, and you kind of look back and you say, what was a value that just transpired? You know, in 2013, what's really a few moments or things that you take away from it? And, you know, I think oftentimes there's nothing material in that equation. It's a few conversations or a few ideas or an exchange with someone at a certain moment in time. And that's what I would gravitate towards. And I thought about this, and I thought about how many kind of moments are ephemeral, and they kind of pass by, and those ideas dissipate after that dinner's done, or you know, or you drop someone off at the airport. So I started just in a very organic way, just filming at my studio when someone was in town, you know, trying to get them to come over and sit down and you know, share some ideas, and with a sense of purpose and focus, you know, and to talk about their work. And you know, over time, the project really kind of grew into something that was maybe less organic and had more of a structure to it, but I want to retain that rawness. And you know, I think after 2 or 3 or 4 of these, I started to see this kind of connectivity that was fascinating to me. You know, you would see certain subjects or ideas kind of reoccur. You know, it might be this idea of randomness or chaos, and how that kind of leads you into an idea. Or someone else might have a very specific and structured starting point for an idea, and then they'd allow chaos into that.
It seemed like there were a couple of interesting recurring themes. Patterns, chaos. I think repetition was something that several people talked about as well. Well, that's interesting to hear. So when you started creating the source, when you started creating the recordings, it wasn't necessarily in the context of this is the source. It was kind of an evolving process that led to.
Yeah, it was just something that I started out of my own curiosity, you know, and I also felt there was a necessity to do it because, you know, there's just, for me, there's nothing better than hearing someone that makes something speak about it in their own words. You know, without filtration, without editing, and just that kind of immediacy to it. I love that. I love this idea of just giving it away, you know, kind of making something and just putting it out there, and you know, letting it become pollen, and not really knowing who's going to watch it or where it's going to go. I think there's something kind of liberating about that. You know, I think that perhaps going back to filmmaking is very much about authorship. You find yourself kind of obsessing on the edit, and you know, these kind of fine things, but then at a certain point the film's done and it lives its life and you walk away from it. And I guess with this project, I want to have that sense of this project, but I also want this to be a living project. Ideally, I'd love this project to be something that, you know, every year we can kind of add to more and more.